Mr. President, you have been a champion for a reform of the global architectural financial system, and you've advocated for this at various international fora, the UN General Assembly, COP27, amongst others. So speak to us about this agenda, why it is important to you, and how you think it'll benefit Kenya and Africa.
Of course, everybody likes money. But this goes beyond money. Let me give you an example. When we did, for the first time, when we looked at how do we begin to roll out the mechanisms that would make Africa Continental Free Trade Area a reality. We decided to export tea to Ghana. That tea took 6 weeks to get to Ghana because it had to go east first towards Dubai and then back, you know. That journey ordinarily would have taken, even if it was by road from Nairobi, it should have taken maybe a week, maybe 7 days, maybe 6 days. So logistics is an issue, as was said by Secretary General here. And with logistics comes, how do you put logistics in place? We all know that even traveling, even by air in this continent, is very, very, very difficult and very expensive. Sometimes you have to go to Europe before you come to some other place. So logistics and the infrastructure to make sure that we can move goods, we can move services from one corner to the other. There you speak to financing. How do we finance the infrastructure necessary to unlock the potential of trade between our countries? And finance becomes very central, and three things are very important when you speak about finance. Number one is cost. Number two is scale. Number three is how long it takes to get it. At the moment, and I'm speaking as a policymaker, and I'm speaking as somebody who has interacted in this space, it takes eternity, if I may say. It takes eternity to get to any financial close on many aspects when you're looking for financing, number one. Number two, sometimes you don't get the scale of the money you're looking for. And number three, there is something called risk, which is a new definition of how not to lend money. Because this risk, and you know, and we pay an arm and a leg for risk. Although data speaks a different language, data shows that investments in our region are not as risky as they are being profiled. So in fact, this profiling of our region as a risky destination is a conspiracy by people. And I saw some of them about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. They were trying to profile us, the credit rating agencies. I think they are the new tools of colonialism, if I may say. Because data speak a different language from the risk we are being profiled. And as a result, we are all now in this space, and it's almost a consensus that the people, the rest of us in this region, we pay anywhere between 4 and 8 times more for resources, for development, for investment, put in place infrastructure than others, than our brothers and sisters in the global north. And we have no problem with our brothers and sisters in the global north accessing finances lower than us. The question we are asking ourselves, is that why are we not getting the same treatment? Why are we being profiled negatively when facts and data show something different? So this is the conversation we want to have. And it is a foregone conclusion today that the system we have is not working. It is not working. It can do better. And that's why we are saying there is need for reform of the international financial system to do three things. Reform to speak to time. How long does it take? It takes minimum 18, 24 months. You know, some of the interventions don't have that kind of gestation period. It doesn't have that time of time, number one. Number two, scale. I'm speaking, for example, and I'm asking myself, if we were to ask for $3 billion to build the standard gauge railway, which China was gracious to give to us, and it took a fairly short time, below 12 months, we wouldn't have built the SGR if we were looking for finances in the current financial system. We wouldn't get that scale. And number three, we wouldn't get the kind of interest that we are looking for. So our position is that there is something the current international financial institutions can do from China, for example, scale and speed. Maybe there is something China can also learn from our current international institution. But we are saying there needs to be a conversation. We need a conversation that makes all of us winners. And what we are saying is, in the reform of these institutions, we're not being reckless. What we are saying is, let us have a fairer international financial system that doesn't price the rest of us into debt, into default, into a situation where it becomes impossible. I mean, let me just ask us seated here. If one person is paying 8 times more than the other, isn't that person paying 8 times set up to fail from the beginning? In fact, it would be a miracle if you don't default. In fact, I think some people are asking themselves, why have these people not defaulted? And it is the same reason, for example, why those Moody's people, the credit rating agencies, were really pushing that, you know, Kenya is in very serious situation. Until we told them, if you continue profiling us negatively, we will pay off this debt and see what you're going to do. Because they were making it look like we are unable to pay. We're telling them we want to pay. In fact, we want to pay before it's due. And they wanted to tell us, if you pay before it's due, it amounts to a default. What kind of nonsense is that? I mean, if you pay your debt early, how does it become a default? It's madness, isn't it? But, you know, we are not conforming to what their expectations. So they are wondering, you are paying 8% more. Why are you not defaulting? Why do you want to pay early? You know, this is the unfortunate conversation we want to have. And that's why, just to conclude, we're saying we want a fairer system that doesn't mistreat other people. We want a fairer system that we pay whatever others are paying. And good people, asking for a fairer system, saying that we want to pay the same interest others are paying, is not asking for too much. It is not breaking the system. It is not unreasonable. I mean, by all accounts, it cannot be unreasonable. We're all saying, let's pay what others are paying. And let's get the scale that can help us achieve what we want. and let us accelerate so that we can all move at the same pace. So that is the push. It is the position of many leaders in the global south. This is not a conversation of north versus south. No, it is a conversation of fairness. And we are not saying the global north should pay more than us. No, we are saying let's pay the same. Tell me how that is not a good thing.
A very important agreement that Kenya has signed to, and that is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Now, even before we get to that, Mr. President, Kenya has, of course, been an economic hub, not just in East Africa, but in the region as well, in the EAC and in COMESA. So, Mr. President, what do you see as Kenya's position, striking a balance between global and regional trade partnerships, bearing in mind AFCTA that is now with us?
Thank you very much, Yvonne. And Madam Rebeca Grynspan, welcome to Kenya. It was a great pleasure meeting you in Geneva, and I did promise, and I wanted to keep the promise, that I would welcome you to Kenya, and we would have an interaction between you, the officials of the government of Kenya, on the very primary and important issues that speak to our situation today in Kenya, in our region, and of course globally. The balance between the 1.4 billion people market in Africa and the rest of the globe. Let me speak to ACFTA first. As you've said correctly, Yvonne, we are already in a very pivotal situation, and this was said by my good brother, the representative of the UN here, that we have the advantage of location, being a country in the East Coast with a port in Mombasa. So we are, to a good extent, a logistical hub, both for our region and continentally. Number two, we are also a financial hub. We have some of the best financial institutions, banks and international financial institutions headquartered here for our region. And it is the reason why we already have a very thriving trade and business environment between us and our partners, both in EAC, in COMESA as well, where we are members. EAC is among the most progressive interaction economic blocks in Africa. I think our intra-Africa trade, our intra-EAC trade is now, I think, 19-20%. While the intra-Africa trade, in Africa is down to 13-14. So we're already in that space. And it is also the reason why when I came into office and appointed a very effective Minister for Trade, Moses there, he's traveled to 20 countries in Africa on the subject of integration. And it is because we believe it's time for us to put all the blocks together. The reason why we've been pushing hard, the reason why I was in Mozambique 4 or 5 days ago, is because we want to conclude the tripartite free trade area agreement that brings together EAC, COMESA, and SADC. That will give us 720 million people market. And it is the building block into the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. While that is the case, our biggest trading partners today in our as Kenya is our regional partners, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, DRC. That's where our biggest market is. And therefore, we are already speaking to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area ecosystem. Intra-Africa trade is already where our biggest market is. And therefore, what UNCTAD is doing, providing us information, giving us leverage on where our trade should go is significant. And that is why I really wanted to be part of this conversation. And as we do that, we also realize that our continent contributes only 3% to international trade. So it means as we build our continent's network and integration to trade amongst ourselves, we also must have at the back of our minds, how do we meaningfully also contribute to international trade? How does intra-African trade also speak the language of international trade? And that is why it's also important for us to build the linkages we are building with EU, for example. We have a signed agreement now with EU. It should have been an agreement for EAC. We went ahead as Kenya because we were ready, but we are confident that our East African community friends will come along. We hope it will be extended to the tripartite free trade area and eventually to the continental framework. It is the reason why today we are negotiating with the US on a strategic partnership agreement. It is the reason why we are negotiating with other blocs, because ultimately Africa must contribute its fair share. 3% is not where we should be. At the very minimum, we should be in the realm of our percentage of population, maybe 17, maybe 20% of global trade. And we are also focusing on the real opportunity that we have in the future. This continent is going to be home to a quarter of the world's population by 2050. This is the continent that has renewable energy resources. This is the continent that has 2/3 of the world's arable uncultivated land. This is the youngest continent. So we have real assets that has the potential to make Africa central to what happens globally going into the future. And that is why integration is front and center, left and right, in us going forward.